I was about 12 or 13 years old. One time I'm walking to my psychiatrist for my weekly appointment. It's a half-hour walk and after dark. I enjoyed walking, especially after dark when things were quiet, peaceful, and slow, and no one else around. No, I didn't live in a dangerous neighborhood, nor did my walk take me through any dangerous neighborhoods. As I'm about halfway to my destination, a car, a Cadillac, comes driving down the street. Some people, both male and female, in the car are sticking themselves halfway out the windows and are taunting me and jeering me as they drive by. A bunch of people in their late teens or early 20s. I ignore them and keep on walking. About a minute or two later, the same car comes down the street again, and those people are jeering me and taunting me again. I don't know who they are. Maybe they live in the neighborhood. I still ignore them and keep walking. Another minute or so goes by, and again they come driving down the street, taunting and jeering me. Now I'm worried. They're circling the block over and over, deliberately focusing on me. As soon as they reach the corner and make their turn and are out of sight, I duck behind some bushes in someone's front yard and wait. The car comes again down the street. This time, not seeing me walking down the street, they're not jeering. They pass right by me in my hiding place and turn the corner. I think they think I've finally reached my destination, one of the houses on the block, and went inside and as a result, drove away. I thought wrong. Stupidly, I leave my hiding place and go back to walking on my way to my psychiatrist. I should have stayed there behind those bushes much longer because I hear the car approaching. They spot me and start taunting and jeering me again. They turn the corner. This time I run towards my destination, but I know I won't get far before the car and those kids catch up with me again. So to that effect, I decided to hide again behind the bushes in front of an apartment building. This time resolving to stay there for good until the thugs in the car gives up their searching for me. I'm hiding there behind the bushes for not long. Maybe about 30 seconds or so when the guy whose apartment it is pops out from his apartment, asking what I'm doing hiding in his bushes. At first he probably thinks I'm a burglar or something, but I explain to him how I'm walking to my psychiatrist and how I'm being followed and harassed by a bunch of kids in a car, which was why I'm hiding in his bushes. The guy can instantly tell from the tone of my voice and my facial expressions that I'm telling him the truth. He can see how scared I am. Just then the car comes down the street and pulls right up at the curb directly in front of us. They look at me and the guy I'm with, not a mean-looking guy, in his late 30s, early 40s, but tough and serious looking enough. He's not wearing a shirt, but he's wearing a sleeveless undershirt, which reveals that this guy's upper body is very well toned, slightly muscular, and no fat. I'm looking at the car and I realize that it's missing a few people inside. The car doesn't look so full now. The guy I'm with just gives them a mean stare. He asks me, "You know them?" I explain that no, I don't know them at all. I haven't the slightest idea of who they are. Just then, as the car is sitting there, about 3 of them approach, walking from the other direction. The car was traveling east to west. Those 3 were walking on foot from west to east. So that's why the car seemed not so full. They were looking to escalate the situation. They weren't satisfied with just driving by and taunting me. They changed tactics. A few of them got out of the car up ahead and started walking toward me while the ones in the car took another turn around the block. Their plan now was to physically trap me in between themselves and their car. Perhaps grab me and drag me into the car with them for whatever reasons. But seeing my tough guy guardian angel with me, the kids walking toward the car instead got into the car and it took off. The guy offered to stay with me for a little longer, or if I wanted to duck into his apartment to stay there until I was sure that it was safe to continue on my journey. I had a feeling that this was the last I was going to see of those guys and their car, and I didn't want to be late for my appointment. So I thanked the guy for his offer, but declined, and decided to head on my way. The guy went back into his apartment and closed the door. I looked at the closed door and hoped that I didn't make a mistake by turning down the guy's offer of better safety, because I was still scared. Thankfully, I was right about not seeing the car again. The rest of my walk I was unmolested. I reached my psychiatrist's office. I told my therapist about what happened. He insisted on calling the police. The police came and took a report from me. That's the last I heard of it. On my way back home, I usually took the same route that I came from, up the same streets. But this evening, I varied my way home, taking some different side streets to walk on. Never saw that car or those thugs again. When I was a sophomore in high school, I had my first real boyfriend. He was a senior, and I felt cool and pretty because he noticed me. Everything was going great until I started receiving notes. Apparently, my boyfriend wasn't the only one who had noticed me. At first, it seemed harmless. Occasionally, I'd find typed notes left on my doorstep saying that I looked nice that day. I didn't think much of it at first because I had a couple of girlfriends who would play jokes and leave little notes every once in a while. I didn't start to get nervous until the note said things about how much this person cared for me and loved me like no one else ever would, or would ever make me happy, like this person could, especially my new boyfriend. I started getting presents and flowers along with the notes. These would come several times a week. I got really uncomfortable about receiving gifts and the admiration of someone I didn't know. The stranger also started to say threatening things about my boyfriend and how much this person hated him. My boyfriend became very frustrated and angry with this stranger and worried about me, so he decided to try to find out who it was. One day I got a necklace from my admirer, and my boyfriend came up with a plan to try and catch the guy. I would wear the necklace the next day at school, in the hopes that this person would notice and leave me. Another note that night, and my boyfriend would try to watch and see who it was. My boyfriend waited at my house late that night, hoping to get a glance of my admirer, but he never came. The next morning, there was a note at my door. It said that I looked great in the necklace and that he knew that my boyfriend was waiting at my house that night. I started to get really scared, but I didn't want this creep to control my life, so I brushed it off. My boyfriend, however, was determined to get to the bottom of it. He continued to stay over late at night, and he started parking a couple of blocks away so the stalker wouldn't recognize his car. It got really scary when he went home around 12:30 on a school night, and moments after he left, the phone rang. My mom answered, and then she started yelling into the phone. It was him, the stalker. He told my mom that he knew my boyfriend was there that night and that he just left. He was watching my house late into the night. I was terrified. I had no idea who this person was, and he was constantly watching my every move. I didn't feel safe in my own home anymore. I didn't want to go back to school. We had to get the cops involved because my family and boyfriend were really concerned about my safety. The cops would patrol around my neighborhood all night and into the day. Yet somehow my stalker would sneak past and continue to leave notes and gifts. One time the cops had a suspect, and they interrogated him, and they said he seemed really sketchy, but they couldn't pin anything on him at all. Over the next few months, things started to wind down. Fewer and fewer notes were showing up, and they eventually stopped altogether. The following couple of years, I received large bouquets of flowers only on my birthday and Valentine's Day. I still don't know who he is, but I know they're from him. A few years ago, I was a shift supervisor in a very large store. It was right in front of my house, and I could easily go to work in less than a minute. My workplace was very ideal. I was almost 40 years old, but I looked younger. I exercised a lot, and my body was in shape even though I was married. But all the boys wanted to flirt with me, and I should have been very excited, but this proposal really bothered me. This store where I worked was located in a really bad neighborhood. It was a place that was close to racist white women and people who sell drugs, alcoholics, and psychopaths. One day, a man picked me up and put me on his shoulders and walked out of the store saying, "You will be a good woman for me." There were so many psychos in that neighborhood. I remember that Sunday morning I was very busy and I was writing down the discounts. I was working with my favorite colleague, so it was not difficult for me and I was very cheerful. But soon a strange thing happened. At the same time, a man and his son entered the store. He was wearing a brown overcoat, which I thought was very strange because it was summer at that time. I greeted them and said, "What can I do to help?" The man with a thick Jamaican accent said, "My GPS is out of order. I wanted to know if you have a GPS here." I laughed and thought he was joking with me. I said, "No, you should go to electronic stores. Of course, we have a small section of electronics here." I pointed to the shelf behind me. The man said, "Oh, thank you." He gave a cursory look there, but he was still zoomed in on me. His eyes were in a way that I was scared of him. He talked to his son in another language. I went back to what I was doing, but he called and said he wanted help. He asked about the charger. I answered him, and then he started flirting and said how beautiful I was. He continued, "Do you exercise?" I said yes, yoga. My feeling of discomfort was increasing. Then he complimented me on my body and said that I like your tattoo. I tried to be polite and then I went to get to work. I wanted to ignore him, but he was staring at me. When I was leaving, the man took out his phone and I heard the sound of him taking a picture. I went to the office to tell my colleague that what he was doing. He took a picture of me and I feel bad. When I came, I saw that the man was looking for me. But by the time my colleague came out of the office, the man had left with his son. A few hours later, my shift ended, and I had completely forgotten about that man. 2 or 3 weeks passed. Me and another colleague were arguing with customers behind the counter. We were very busy that day, and I wanted my shift to end sooner, after my colleague finished his work. He gave me an envelope, and I said, "What is this?" My colleague said, "I don't know. A black man with braided hair told me to give you this." I took the envelope and went to the office. Inside the envelope were many different photos of me. Most of the photos were from working in the store, some were taken when returning home, and even it was me and my daughter. I felt very bad. I saw a note with a photo. It said, "You are very beautiful. I love you. I will be a much better husband for you. Better than the one you have now. Please give me a chance." There were other things in the envelope, but now it is in the possession of the police as evidence. That stupid man had written the name and address on the letter. I immediately called the manager of our store and also the police. They took the camera footage and recorded the statements and the names and photos as well. They warned him to stay away from me. Otherwise, he will be arrested next time and they won't let him enter the store again. I was relieved, but I was still a little scared. About a month had passed since that incident. It was very busy on Sunday night. I was the supervisor and another colleague. There was a cashier and we were talking to people. I noticed that a man was staring at me. He was a tall man with a medium build. His hair was braided, he was dark-skinned, and like the same man, he had a silver earring and was wearing an overcoat. He looks very scary and strange. His eyes were cold and soulless and angry, as if he didn't intend to buy. He was standing there like that and staring at me. I tried to smile at him, but at the same time, a few more customers came. I started to take care of the customers, and I didn't see that man again. I didn't even see him when the store was quiet. I was going to the warehouse when I heard that Jamaican accent and saw that scary man in the mirror. He was talking on the phone and saying, "Yes, she is right here. No, there is just another girl next to her. Whenever he comes in the store, I will take him out." I was very scared that man did not see me at that moment. That's why I calmly returned to the store, told my colleague about the matter very briefly, and called the police and the store manager, and the police arrested him and took him away. A few days later, an investigator came to our house to talk to me. Those 2 men are brothers. Their job is stealing women and actually human trafficking. He told me that you were really lucky, and then I found out that the policeman found the woman in their apartment, who was beaten to death. Both brothers are now in prison, but I still have nightmares because of this story. What happened to that woman could have happened to me, but thank God it didn't happen.
If you enjoy the video, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to support us, share it to your bestie.